So we move on next to IC sockets and capacitors. And so pay attention to the silk screen. There's one IC socket on the back of the board. There's a notch in the socket here. I probably won't show up very well. And there's a notch indicated in the silk screen that tells you the orientation of the socket. So we will hold it temporarily in place. We'll tack two opposite corners just to hold it in place. I'll then put some pressure on it to make sure it's flush. Pressure on each corner, just pushing it up flush. And that socket's ready to be soldered. Need to be a little bit careful here not to touch an LED with the soldering pencil. You'll melt the case. And since some of the sockets are between, well, the rest of the soldering's on the back of the board, so that won't be an issue. So, and that socket's soldered in. We then move on to sockets that are mounted on the back of the board, or no, the front of the board. And again, got to pay attention to the notch and the indication in the silk screen. So we'll start with these two. A little bit of tape just to keep them in place. Tack a corner pin, opposite corners. Just to hold it temporarily in place. Now I will apply pressure with my finger and make sure it's pushed up flush. A lot of solder there for some reason. And I'm going to tack in the next two. Again, making sure the notch in the socket aligns with the, it's got a bent pin. Must have bent it when I removed it from the cardboard backer it was on, or when I picked it up. I'm going to tack them all in, then I'll just go back around and solder them all in one pass. Again, just enough to hold them generally in place. Wow, it's really hard getting this on camera. Tack a couple corners. Pressure from underneath just to make sure it's flush. We've got where did I end up bending the pins on these? Again, making sure to get the notch aligned to the silk screen. Opposite corners. Apply pressure just to make sure it's flush. Oh, I felt that one actually move. It wasn't flush. And I felt that one move. Is there an extra socket in the kit? Oh no. There's 3 left to go. Yeah, I'm struggling to get it to drop in. One. Two. And three. Again, I'm applying pressure from under the board to the socket just to make sure it's in flush. Remove the tape, maybe. Now I'm just going to look at them all. Make sure they all seem flush. That one doesn't quite look flush. And it's just solder away. I'm actually counting here in my head 4, 5, 6, 7 to make sure I get all 7 pins. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Running out of room here to keep the board actually in the field of view of the cameras. I've got a big ugly solder build up on it. Apologies if I just bumped the camera rag with my shoulder. I believe I did. know, no commentary here. Sorry. Bulk soldering is rather boring. Of course, I am silently counting 7 pins. There's 8 pins. I soldered the corners originally, and then 7 more to complete the socket. That's actually a pretty crusty looking solder joint there. We've got this guy down here. Back here. Now that tip has really gotten dirty. I don't clean the tip often enough. Bad habit. And touch that one up a little ratty. I think that's all of them. I'm going to put on a better pair of glasses and just take a look for any bridges or missed joints. Here's one that did not take solder well. That's better. Everybody looks happy. And I believe from there we move on to the capacitors. Oh, drop the glasses on the floor. Man, if it can be dropped on the floor, I can do it. I am an expert at dropping stuff on the floor. So I assume we're going to see places for capacitors to get installed here. And I'm just going to, for these, just fillet the leads out to hold them in place rather than try to tape them down. And there are 2 along here. Looks like there's lots of extra capacitors potentially. I'm not really sure why there seems to be so many. I can see one down there I missed. I'll come back to it. 1, 2. And 3. Missed one down here. And it's going to be stubborn. Leads. There's one up here by this reset switch. There's one down here off the end of this IC. Have I missed any? I don't see any other spots marked for caps. All these had the silk screen on the top of the board. I don't think there's silk screening. Oh, there is. There's all the caps around the, yeah. There's 5 of them down here that go around the, can't think of the name of the chip. It's a 232 or a 3232 anyhow. It's a TTL to RS-232 level converter. Max 232, and I think it's actually a Max 2232 or a Max 3232 that's used. It uses, you know, the smaller 0.1 microfarad caps. The older ones used 1 microfarad, or yeah, 1 microfarad caps versus like 0.1 or 0.01. So just gonna walk along, solder these. Come on, actually take solder. That got all of them. Like there are 4 or 5 that mount on this side of the board. Again, pay attention to the silk screen so you get stuff on the correct side of the board. I've put 3 of them only in, and then I'll add the next 2 after the leads have been trimmed off of these 3. It just gives me a bit more working room down here. Here, and there's one up here, and I'm going to assume this last one is a spare. Was a spare LED in the package. Why not a spare capacitor? I will look again for holes just to see if I've missed a capacitor someplace. These are, the vast majority of these are just despiking capacitors for the power supply, and it's not like the TTL logic on here is running at real high speed, so it's good attention to detail to have them. But if you missed one, it really shouldn't affect the operation. Although around the Max 232 it would affect the operation. So if I missed any capacitors, I see both of those have one, that one, that one, that one, and that one. That one, and he's got the 4 to generate the power supply rails. I think that gets us all the sockets.